and President Trump on the stump overnight in classic rangy form. He was in Pennsylvania, ostensibly to campaign for a Republican candidate who's locked in a surprisingly tight race in a district Trump won by 19-20 points.
The president barely mentioned that local race. However, instead, he focused on everything from tariffs to North Korea to his own appearance. He also unveiled his slogan for his 2020 re-election campaign. ABC's White House correspondent Tara Palmieri is back with us this morning from Washington. Tara, good morning to you.
Good morning. That's right, Dan and Paula. It was vintage Trump in Pennsylvania. White House aides say expect a lot more of these rallies until the midterm elections. Overnight, for the first time, President Trump unveiling his 2020 campaign.
Our new slogan, when we start running in, can you believe it, 2 years from now, is going to be, "Keep America Great!" Exclamation point. Keep America great.
Even slamming his potential opponent, Oprah Winfrey.
I know her weakness. Wouldn't we love to run against Oprah? I would love it. That would be a painful experience for her.
Winfrey has denied she has any interest in running for president. All this at President Trump's rally in the Steel City.
Steel is back and aluminum is back.
Just days after announcing market-rattling steel tariffs.
Pennsylvania is the state that gave us American independence, American freedom, and what else? American steel.
Returning to a state he says feels like home after helping him win the election. This time to endorse Republican congressional candidate Rick Saccone, days ahead of a close special election.
They're all watching because I won this district like by 22 points.
He won that district by 19 points, but it's an unusually tight race for Saccone.
Are you going to help me on Tuesday? Let's close this deal!
Republicans throwing a whopping $9 million at the election, fearing that if they lose a safe seat in Congress, it's a downward spiral to the 2018 midterms. Trump dubbed the Democratic candidate Conor Lamb the Sham, claiming he would vote along party lines, even though he's running as a moderate. The president touched on his own accomplishments since he took office.
We've created almost 300,000 new manufacturing jobs. You saw what I did with the tariffs. They said, we don't want to pay tariffs. And I think we're doing a good job for you. I hope so. We're working hard.
But focused on his potential landmark meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, calling it a done deal.
This should have been handled, and everybody will say it too. But that's okay, because that's what we do. We handle things.
Even bashing former presidents for not stopping North Korea's nuclear weapons program.
They had their shot, and all they did was nothing.
It's a risky move for President Trump to put his political capital on the line for a weak candidate. If Saccone loses a safe seat, it could be seen as another referendum on Trump. But White House officials say he feels like he has no other choice. Dan? Paula?
Yeah, that special election on Tuesday. Tara, thank you for your reporting this morning. And Dan, I know that you recently spent a good deal of time in this particular Pennsylvania district. What was your impression?
Well, I spent some time with Rick Saccone, the candidate there, the Republican candidate. He's a really interesting guy. He spent time in Iraq getting involved in interrogations. He's lived in North Korea. He's been a professor. He's a state rep. He calls himself Trump before Trump. This is the back of his campaign card where we spoke at length. The Democratic candidate, however, Conor Lamb, did not want to talk to the national media. He is really trying to keep a low and local profile. We did, however, spend a bunch of time with his supporters. These are some union voters, and then here we are in the suburbs, in a fancy suburb outside of Pittsburgh, where they are strongly anti-Trump. And many of these women say they are now first-time political activists because of Trump. Yeah, that seems to be driving them to the polls. So we want to bring in ABC's chief White House correspondent, John Carl, who's hosting This Week later this morning. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paula.
So let's dig in more on this Pennsylvania special election. Some are saying that it could be an indicator of what might happen in November's midterms when the Democrats are going to try to flip 24 seats to regain the House. Is this race really that important?
Well, it would be a disaster for the Republicans to lose this. Remember, as Trump himself pointed out in his rally last night, he won this district by 20-plus points in November of 2016. The fact that there is even a race here is a troubling sign for the Democrats, but they seem to have put together almost the ideal candidate. They've made this very close. It'll be interesting to see if the Democrats blow it after coming so close, whether or not there'll be any second guessing of that thing that Dan mentioned, this Conor Lamb not talking to the media at all. It seems kind of a strange approach for a new candidate for Congress.
He is talking to the local media, though, and this race will be interesting. A lot of people are going to look at it as maybe a sign of the beginning of a blue wave. Let's move, though, John, to North Korea. You had this exchange with the president this week, right around the time that the news was breaking about his possible meeting with the North Korean dictator. What's your sense now? Is this meeting actually going to happen? And if so, under what circumstances?
Well, there was some confusion created the next day. On Friday, Sarah Sanders, the press secretary, said that there were concrete actions that the North Koreans would take before a meeting would take place. That implied that there are preconditions. What are those concrete actions? She mentioned denuclearizations. Was there any commitment being made? I've been told that actually there's been no change since this was announced Thursday night, that this meeting, the planning is underway. The only guarantee that has been offered is that there will be no nuclear testing or missile testing before the meeting by the North Koreans. We will see, but that is one of the questions that I'm going to want to put to Raj Shah on this week. Also, by the way, Dan and Paula, where is this meeting going to take place? We have no indication of that yet.
Yeah, there are lots of locations have been talked about, including the DMZ, including Mar-a-Lago, but either way, a huge risk. John Karl, thank you. We look forward to your show this morning. I want to remind everybody, John does have a big show. He's going to go one-on-one, as he said, with the White House principal, Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah.
Plus, the Powerhouse Roundtable weighs in on yet another wild week in Washington. Of course, that's coming up on This Week right here on ABC a little later this morning.
Thanks again to John Karl.